Good afternoon. Welcome to the meeting of the City of Rehoboth Planning Commission. I would ask the secretary to call the roll.
Commissioner Bryan.
Present.
Commissioner Davis.
Present.
Commissioner Dewey. Present. Commissioner Ellison.
Present.
Commissioner Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Hunter. Absent. Commissioner Stewart.
Here.
Commissioner Stockdale.
Present.
And Commissioner Strange, absent.
Thank you. We have, I call the meeting to order, approximately 2 o'clock. In terms of the agenda for today, I'd like to rearrange the first two items. The first matter to come before us will be a public hearing on a lot consolidation for, it's a request for property located in the C1 zoning district on Sussex County tax map parcel number 334-14.7-320, lot number 80, block Rehoboth Avenue, and Sussex County tax map number 334-14.17-321, lot number 78, block Rehoboth Avenue. The addresses of the property are 228 and 230 Rehoboth Avenue. This public hearing has been requested by Regan Derrickson of Summerhouse Rehoboth LLC, owner of the properties. So I'd like to have that matter come before us first. Is there someone here for the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Bryan.
Yes.
James Becker with
Good
Hudson
afternoon.
Jones, Derrick and Fisher.
Thank you, sir. Please proceed.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. As I just stated, my name is James Becker, or Jay Becker. I'm with Hudson Jones, Derrick and Fisher. I'm here on behalf of my client, which is actually Summerhouse Rehoboth LLC. Summerhouse Rehoboth LLC's sole member and principal, Regan Derrickson, is there in the blue suit here with me today. Also, we have here today their designer, Kyle Hamilton with Design Delmarva, who's here as well. At the end of my short presentation, I'll try to keep it short. I will ask them to be made available for any questions that the commissioners may have. So I'd like to, my client, as stated by Mr. Bryan, is seeking to consolidate its two adjacent lots, again located at 228 and 230 Rehoboth Avenue. I should note, before going too far into it, when you look at the exhibits, there was some confusion with respect to the address of 230 Rehoboth Avenue. It's based off of the county. Their tax computer actually had it misstated as 232. It actually came up at settlement when we were purchasing, my client was purchasing 230. The lender actually noticed that the county had it as 232. It has been fixed in the county system, by the way, so I just want to make sure there's no confusion. Again, we are talking about 228 and 230 Rehoboth Avenue. Okay? Again, I don't know where that went wrong with the county, but that glitch has been fixed. So,
And both lots are under common ownership, is that correct?
I'm about to go into it, but that's absolutely correct. Yes, yes, Mr. Bryan. Pursuant to Section 270-46.1, the Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, two or more lots under common ownership shall be consolidated into larger single parcel for zoning purposes when the multiple lots are utilized as one parcel, as evidenced through the placement of a structure, structures, or other improvements thereon, and when multiple lots are expressly consolidated to comply with the provisions of the chapter. Currently, 228 Rehoboth Avenue is comprised of lot 78, which is a 50-foot by 100-foot rectangular lot with the 50-foot side fronting Rehoboth Avenue. As shown on that plot of lands, Rehoboth Beach Camp Meeting Association, sorry, I'm just setting a record, I apologize for the droning on, of the Methodist Episcopal Church in Deed Book 84, page 602. The parcel bears Sussex County tax map and parcel number 334-1417-321. The Summerhouse Restaurant sits and operates on that parcel. My client purchased that property on or about September 13, 2022 from Summerhouse Properties LLC, and that deed is recorded in the Office of Recorder of Deeds in for Sussex County in Georgetown, Deed Book 5773, page 17 at SEC. All right, 230 Rehoboth Avenue is comprised of lot 80, and that also is a 50 by 100 rectangular lot with the 50-foot fronting Rehoboth Avenue. As shown on the same plot, as just stated, of the lands of the Rehoboth Beach Camp Meeting Association of the Methodist Episcopal Church. That parcel bears the Sussex County tax map and parcel number 334-14.17320, and that parcel is currently unimproved and does, as stated, it sits adjacent to the west of 228 Rehoboth Avenue, again, the summer house parcel. It's that blank lot there. That parcel was purchased by my client December 5, 2024, from a whole bunch of people. 23, thank you very much. See, I'm never good with the transition. Thank you, Commissioner. That was from Joan Matthews, William Onefrichek, probably messed up his name there, Christopher Lindsay, James Matthews Jr., James Matthews III, Christine S. Matthews, Catherine W. Matthews. And again, that deed is recorded in 6023, page 116. We have submitted previously copies of those deeds, which I believe are in the record already. And to answer Commissioner Bryan's question, they do demonstrate that the property is commonly owned by my client, Summerhouse Rehoboth LLC. I've also submitted two different plots, two more updated plots. Again, as noted, the earlier ones, my client actually submitted reference 232 Rehoboth Avenue. That again was done in the kind of days leading up to the purchase before the county had figured out that they made a mistake. So again, there are subsequent ones resubmitted with the correct address of 230, and they're identical otherwise. And perhaps we can look at those real quickly. And I want to be clear. Anita? Oh, got it. Maybe. Boom. There we go.
Mr. Becker, you may want to enlarge using the plus
Got it.
icon there.
Thank you very, very much. Anita Biddle, find it. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, again, just for orientation purposes, you'll see the summer house over here on the right-hand side now. And then this is what is currently the blank lot. And I want to be clear, this is not a site plan review. I'm not seeking that approval here. Rather, it's just really the purpose is to show everybody that, A, the orientation of the two lots vis-a-vis each other, i.e. that they're adjacent lots, and also to show that the intent, assuming we're approved, assuming we get approval from the city as well for building the proposed improvements, the intention is to use the two parcels jointly as in one cohesive use, namely the existing summer house restaurant, which I should point out is not being touched. We're not looking to demolish the thing. The only change in that is we're putting in access doors over here, but otherwise the building will remain as it is currently. And then that would be access to this patio to be used jointly. That patio is under 1,000 square feet as required. This structure, by the way, is again, we're not here to talk about structures, but that structure is a ginormous fountain. My client is aware that there is no outdoor speakers, there is no outdoor music of any nature, and he thought perhaps a fountain noise would be kind of nice for people who sit there and eat. So again, we're not here for that purpose, but I just point that out for your knowledge, okay? Also, if I figure out how to do this properly, just to point out, there's also some parking spots that's going to be utilized for staff of the restaurant, frankly. There's 4 spots in a loading zone as well. So, again, I'm not suggesting this is the final. This is not final, by the way. This is the concept. Okay. So, with respect to the foregoing, I think we've demonstrated, I believe, according to code, that my client commonly owns the property, and if approved, the two properties, the two parcels will in fact comply with requirements for consolidation by being utilized as one parcel. Again, these are two commercially zoned parcels. It takes out a lot of the questions as far as whether or not there's setbacks, all that stuff, because it's C1 commercial. We are not going to. I will represent that by allowing this consolidation, we are not in any way becoming non-conforming with the code. That is not a danger on this particular project, as it might be, I guess, if you had a residential lot with a house on it. Then, of course, if you consolidate, it might change the setback scenario with the ratios. But that's not the case here, so I don't want to confuse that. So that really is the application. That's the gist of it. What I'd like to do, if at all possible, at this point, is just bring up my client's principal, Reagan Derrickson, just to ask him a few questions. Again, my idea is to try to streamline this. So For the record, Reagan, you've listened to my presentation. You've also read it because I gave you a copy of it in advance. Is it true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, everything's true.
Okay. Do you have any questions about it? Do you have any corrections you'd like to make?
I do not.
Okay. May I ask you to adopt my presentation as your own testimony?
I adopt your presentation as my own testimony.
Thank you very much. Would you like to further explain anything, elaborate on the plans, anything you want to tell the commission?
No, unless they have questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer right now.
Sir, can you speak into the microphone? And secondly, before you go further, do you swear and affirm that your testimony here today is the truth? So help you, it is the truth?
Yes, sir.
And is accurate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So continue, please. I'm sorry.
My apologies, Mr. Bryan. So again, just to go back, Brian, you adopt my presentation?
I adopt your presentation.
Thank you very much. So with that said, if I'd like to open for questions and discussion.
Members of the commission, any questions?
I think it's a great plan. I look forward to, I enjoy going there both before and after planning commission meetings, as it's right across the street. So I think the outdoor patio is going to be very nice.
Thank you very much.
So, and I also appreciate, and I understand, you know, our work on lot consolidation is a new code change that was made. Previously, it didn't have to be done formally, but the process that was adopted allowed us to go straight to public hearing if all of the elements were in place, such as the common ownership, and they are. And I think you've gone a step further in giving us plans that, as you said, were not required for today, but nevertheless give us even more information that was necessary. So we thank you for that. It's really, it's a very well-done presentation. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Anyone else in the planning commission? Is anyone here from the public to speak?
What about, can you give us an update on what fees have been paid and in what amount, please?
Sure, of course, understand. So when this process started, I believe we'd paid $500, which I think was the old regime. Then looking at the code, we took the most liberal approach as far as how the fees could be interpreted. So what it says is it's now a $1,000 application fee plus $200 per lot. Of course, the question becomes, you know, we are two lots that are becoming one lot, so is it 1,000 plus 200 or 1,000 plus 400 because we were two lots to one, or is it 1 to 2? We just took the liberal application and we did the $1,400 just for safety's sake. So $1,400 has been submitted.
Okay. Anyone from the public here to speak to this application? Building inspector, do you have any comments, any concerns?
No, I prepared a memo that I trust everyone has received from the support documentation. As I would agree with the applicant here, everything is known to be true.
All right, sir. Is there a motion concerning this application? Yeah, I do. We have a resolution that I'd like to have read into the record. Let me put this out there first. Mr. Mehta, would you read this resolution, please?
I will. So this is a resolution upon which a motion one way or another could be made, and then the Planning Commission can decide what they want to do with the resolution. But this resolution as written would assume approval. So I'll read it into the record. This is a resolution of the Rehoboth Beach Planning. I don't think we have a copy of it, but that's why I'm going to read it. A resolution of the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission approving the lot consolidation application of Summer House Rehoboth LLC regarding 228 and 230 Rehoboth Avenue, lots 78 and 80. Whereas Summer House Rehoboth LLC applicant seeks to consolidate into a single parcel, the consolidated lot, the following two adjacent lots, each a lot and together the lots, located within the corporate limits of the city of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, the city. A, 228 Rehoboth Avenue, Lot 78, tax map number 334-14.17-321, and B, 230 Rehoboth Avenue, Lot 80, tax map number 334-14.17-320, the lot consolidation application. Whereas applicant has submitted survey drawings depicting the lots applicant seeks to consolidate. Whereas prior to September 15, 2023, the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, 2001, as amended, the code, Section 270-46.1, consolidation of lots, provided as follows, and I'm just going to read what the code previously provided. A, 2 or more lots under common ownership shall be consolidated into a single parcel for zoning purposes when the multiple lots are utilized as one parcel, as evidenced through the placement of a structure, structures, or other improvements thereon, or when the multiple lots are expressly consolidated to comply with the provisions of this chapter. B, no lots may be consolidated unless the lots are under common ownership. C, no permit shall be issued when 2 or more lots must be consolidated to comply with the provisions of this chapter until the owner of the lots has executed a lot consolidation affidavit provided by the city, acknowledging the consolidation of the lots into a larger single parcel for zoning purposes, and the affidavit is recorded in the Sussex County Office of the Recorder of Deeds. D, lots merged as provided herein may be separated to their originally plotted lot configuration through an administrative approval of the city manager by demonstrating that it is not necessary to consolidate the multiple lots to comply with the provisions of this chapter, or by demonstrating that but for the requirements of Section 270-22A, it is not necessary to consolidate the multiple lots to comply with the provisions of this chapter. And each of the lots, as originally plotted, conform to the requirements of Section 270-22A3 of this chapter. E, again, I'm still reading from the former language of 270-46.1. E, upon application to the Board of Adjustment, the Board of Adjustment shall grant a special exception separating lots previously determined to be consolidated when it is demonstrated by substantial evidence that the lots were consolidated due to a legislative act of the commissioners and not due to land improvements or the execution of a lot consolidation affidavit by the owner or predecessor owner, and that but for the legislative act of the commissioners, it is not necessary to consolidate the multiple lots to comply with the provisions of this chapter. And each of the lots as originally plotted conform to the requirements of Section 270-22A3 of this chapter. And then F, notwithstanding anything contained in this chapter to the contrary, in all residential districts, no structure shall be constructed that would result in the consolidation of 2 or more lots for zoning purposes unless all such combined lots shall have contiguous and continuous frontage on the same street. So that's the language from the former 270-46.1. Now back to the resolution. Whereas, by way of ordinance number 0923-10, adopted on September 15, 2023, and ordinance number 092302, also adopted on September 15, 2023, the Commissioners of the City, among other things, A, deleted in its entirety the above-quoted former City Code Section 270-46.1 consolidation of lots. B, established a fee under City Code Section 236-4 for lot consolidation in the amount of $1,000 plus $200 per lot. C, in general, amended Chapter 236 of the City Code to create a mechanism for the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission to approve the consolidation or separation of lots in a summary manner. D, amended Section 236-10 of the City Code to provide that the Planning Commission shall review for approval or disapproval an application for lot consolidation. And E, amended City Code Section 236-8.1 to provide that an application for a lot consolidation shall be placed on a meeting agenda of the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission for preliminary review, provided that, upon a recommendation from the building inspector, that all parcels that are the subject of an application for lot consolidation meet all the requirements of City Code Section 270-22, the chair of the Planning Commission may determine that preliminary review is not required and schedule a hearing required under City Code Section 236-28. Whereas the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission believes as a policy matter that the substantive provisions for lot consolidation as previously set forth in the currently stricken Section 270-46.1 consolidation of lots of the City Code still provide helpful guidance for lot consolidation applications, and therefore, barring any other direction from the Board of Commissioners and in the public interest, the Planning Commission will apply those substantive provisions to this lot consolidation application. Whereas applicant seeks to consolidate the lots because the lots are and are intended to be utilized as a single parcel through the placement of a structure, structures, or other improvements thereon. Whereas the building inspector for the city has determined A, that both lots are situated in the C1 Central Commercial District, B, that both lots are regular 50-foot by 100-foot lots, each consisting of 5,000 square feet, and C, that there are no nonconformities existing on either lot and none will be created by the consolidation of the lots. Whereas, based on the above described determination of the building inspector, the chair of the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission has determined that a preliminary review of the lot consolidation application is not required, and therefore scheduled a public meeting on the lot consolidation application for January 12, 2024. Whereas, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on the lot consolidation application on January 12, 2024, during which the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission considered the application, heard testimony from the applicant and the city, and provided the public an opportunity to comment. Whereas the Planning Commission has carefully reviewed the lot consolidation application with the benefit of evidence presented during the public hearing on January 12, 2024. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission in session met this 12th day of January 2024 as follows. And again, this is simply a resolution that's subject to a motion. Section 1, the lot consolidation request shall be and hereby is granted based on the following findings. 1, proper notice. The city provided public notice of the January 12, 2024 public hearing of the lot consolidation application as required by City Code Section 236-28 and 236-29. 2, fees paid. Applicant has paid to the city the applicable fee of $1,400 pursuant to City Code Section 236-4. 3, zoning. The lots are located in the C1 Central Commercial District. 4, compliance with the City Code Section 270-22, minimum lot dimensions. The consolidated lot meets the minimum lot dimensions required by the City Code Section 270-22, to wit, A, the consolidated lot has at least 50 feet of frontage on a street, B, the consolidated lot has an area of at least 5,000 square feet, and C, the consolidated lot can fully contain within it a rectangle of at least 4,000 square feet in an area and with its shortest side measuring at least 48 feet. 5, no nonconformity created. The consolidation of the lots does not otherwise create a nonconformity within Chapter 270 of the Zoning Code. 6, common ownership. The lots are commonly owned by Summerhouse Rehoboth LLC. 7, lots utilized as one parcel. The lots are intended to be utilized as one parcel, including as evidence to the placement of a structure, structures, or other improvements thereon. Section 2, as provided in City Code Section 236-10G, as in God. Golf. These days, you gotta be careful what you say, right?
Interesting choices.
No deed that consolidates the lots shall be filed in the office of the Recorder of Deeds for Sussex County until the lot consolidation application has been duly approved by the city. Section 3, neither the current nor any future owners of the lots may sell, convey, or otherwise transfer the lots unless either A, all the lots are sold, conveyed, or otherwise transferred simultaneously as a consolidated lot to a new owner or owners, who shall be subject to all applicable provisions of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, or B, the owner or owners obtain approval from the City of Rehoboth Beach to separate the lots in accordance with the applicable provisions of the City Code, and such approval is of record in the office of the Recorder of Deeds in and for Sussex County, Delaware. Section 4, this resolution does not purport to be, and shall not be construed as constituting approval by the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission of any request, plan, or proposal beyond the express provisions hereof. By way of example only, this resolution does not constitute an approval of A, any site plan, or B, any request to permit outdoor dining. Section 5, this resolution constitutes a final action of the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission under City Code Section 236-6 with regard to this lot consolidation application.
Thank you, Mr. Mata. Before this moves to a vote, and before I close the public hearing, I just want to make sure this is our first First, lot consolidation under the new ordinance. And Mr. Janis, there were a number of items recited in this resolution that require findings by the building inspector. Do you have any issues with any of the findings that were recited or evidence presented here today?
No, and to the fact that my memo calls out those various items that were stated, and I agree with all of them.
Yes, yes, I did see your memo, and thank you for that. Yep, I do. Do I have a motion to adopt what Mr. Mehta recited as a motion to approve this lot consolidation?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Well, I think
Oh, yeah, we ought to
take
do a roll
call.
Let's
vote
do
on
it by
that.
roll call. And again, sorry, this is our first time through. A roll call vote, please, and when you vote, state your reasons to support your vote, which could include reasons stated by others. Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Commissioner Davis.
I vote to approve the resolution. I think all of the provisions of the code, the prior code and the present code, have been met, and I think the project bears our support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Myself, Commissioner Dewey, it appears from all of the evidence presented that it meets the requirements under law to support the lot consolidation. I also think that it's supported by the Rehoboth plan for the future of Rehoboth Avenue, and I fully support the application.
Next.
Ellison.
I support this, and for the reasons already stated, it's a terrific project.
Commissioner Gay.
I support the resolution as well for reasons stated by my colleagues.
Commissioner Stewart.
I support the resolution as well for the same reasons and for the fact that we've had no objection from the building inspector or the public, and it appears code compliant.
Commissioner Stockdale.
I support the resolution for the reasons stated in the resolution and for the reason that I have heard no countervailing views from the public.
And Commissioner Bryan.
Yes, I support this resolution. I thank the applicant for bringing forward a good project, well done, and thank you for enduring our learning process to approve your project.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask that you leave that on screen for just a second while I make a point not having to do with your application?
Sure.
Okay. On that survey, in fact, I don't know if you can move it over slightly. You see at the bottom corner that says alley, okay? That, on our zoning map, that is Wilmington Avenue, but it is often called alley for reasons that I think just because it's the backs of buildings and across the street is a parking lot, and so over the years it's just been called it, but it is in fact Wilmington Avenue. And what it brings up to me is the critical need in the city, and this is an internal suggestion, not having to do with your application. We desperately need a city street map, and I only learned, relatively recently that that it is separate from the zoning map and that we do not have one. And so I think if we had an official street map, then we could restore that to be Wilmington Avenue. Just wanted to make that point.
Makes sense.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next matter is the consideration and possible vote on proposed amendments to chapters 236 and 270 of the Municipal Code. And I'll take a moment here for Mr. Mehta to get set up. I think we want to put a document up, at least one on the screen. Is that correct, Luke?
Yes. So with the commission's consent, I thought I would just highlight, so what's on the screen and which has been embedded in the agenda and publicly available is a comprehensive proposed red line of all of the proposed changes to chapters 236 and 270 cumulatively that the Planning Commission has been discussing for a year and a half now. I will go through the laborious exercise, if that's what you want me to do, to read a resolution that summarizes everything. For purposes of this discussion here, however, I'm going to highlight and zero in for your focus and for the public those changes to this document that have been made since the December discussion of the Planning Commission. In other words, the red line changes are cumulative, but there are certain changes that have only been made since December. So one of those new changes is under the definition of preliminary site plan review. That's a new definition, sub C under site plan review, and it's the first sentence of preliminary site plan review that's been modified based on the discussion from last month. So this language is at your direction. It's the first sentence is new. Under preliminary site plan review, a second set of plans for review that incorporates detailed engineering elements exceeding those found in the concept plan submission and reflecting guidance provided during prior discussions with the Planning Commission. Any further comment, discussion on that new language? If not, the next new language since December of last year is the last proviso for the definition of substantial renovation. Remember, this is an issue that's been discussed ad nauseum. The new language in the provided section at the end of substantial renovation is as follows: provided, however, that an interior and or exterior renovation that involves only ordinary and necessary maintenance, repair, and or minor modifications or updating of non-structural elements of an existing building shall not be deemed a substantial renovation. Any further discussion on that issue?
Hearing none, move forward.
The next new language pertains to the discussion that we were just having. And this would be in Article or Section 236-7 approval procedure. This is under Article 2, and under A and B, it seems appropriate to add reference to consolidation of lots as underlined here. That's in A and B. Given the act of the Board of Commissioners in September of last year.
So that's just moving the language that was 270-46.1 over to.
I will get to that in a second. Okay. So right now I'm just focused on 236-7.
Okay.
I'm simply adding, what I'm suggesting is that you recommend to the Board of Commissioners, I should say, that you add consolidation of lots in A and B, as indicated. And then, Commissioner Gay, I think what you're referring to is this next section. This is new. This would be a proposed new 236-8.2 consolidation of lots. And in view of what we just went through, and the fact that the comparable Section 270-46.1 of the code has been stricken, the proposal is to, with one or two exceptions I'll talk about here in a second, to lift, cut, and place verbatim what used to be 270-46.1 and make it new 236-8.2. So this, what you see on the screen is a lift and place of the former 270-46.1. It does strike me at the suggestion of somebody, one of the commissioners here prior to this meeting, that the lift and cut place language might be improved even more in two minor respects. So if you look at the first line of 236, 8.2A, consolidation of lots. 2 or more lots under common ownership shall be consolidated into a larger single. The proposal is to replace what we have here as parcel with the word lot. So it would read 2 or more lots under common ownership shall be consolidated into a larger single lot for zoning purposes. I should say zoning purposes. And similarly, under C, where the language currently says no permit shall be issued when 2 or more lots must be consolidated with the provisions of this chapter until the owner of the lots has executed a lot consolidation affidavit provided by the city acknowledging that consolidation of the lots into a larger single. Again, the idea would be to use the word lot rather than parcel here. That's up to you, obviously, but so otherwise, it's a lift and cut in place from former 270-46.1, but possibly with the idea of changing the words parcel to lot as indicated. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Anyone? No, please proceed.
The other new language to consider since December is in 236-30A 4D. You may recall there was some discussion about adding language to create a new 4D. So the language here would be to add, this would be a project that would require site plan review, a commercial project that either A, B, C, D, involving the development of the entirety or any portion of an unimproved parcel of land. Under B, as in boy, there's new language since December, which is the highlighted language there at the end of B. If a proposed use or development requires both site plan approval under this article and lot consolidation approval under Article 2 of this chapter, the application for site plan approval and the application for lot consolidation approval may be reviewed concurrently by the Planning Commission. This is conveying the same concept as the first sentence of 236-30B. The first sentence refers to subdivision. The proposed new section makes the same point with regard to lot consolidation.
Any comments? All right, sir.
And that is the extent of the new language for your consideration since your December meeting.
All right. Any thoughts from anyone? Everything consistent with what we have previously discussed and what we have before us today? Any objections? It's been a long time, this particular project. I think some of us have had birthdays.
And do you have that? Okay, yeah. I mean, well, I think most of the substantial changes that we made were in the last two meetings, and this is cleaning up what we, and adding the lot consolidation, which is a piece given to us late by the commissioners. So, I mean, I think we have all been through it pretty thoroughly.
I'm going to ask Mr. Mehta to read the proposed resolution, and you'll have to be patient, please. It's going to take some time. But to read the proposed resolution so that everyone understands what the proposed changes are that we are recommending to the Board of Commissioners. This body does not have the authority to change the city code. We make recommendations.
Okay, so this would be a proposed resolution upon which the Planning Commission could or could not make a motion and act however it deems fit. But for the sake of transparency, this motion, this resolution will summarize all of the changes that have been discussed by this Planning Commission and are being recommended to the Board of Commissioners. A resolution of the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission recommending to the Rehoboth Beach Board of Commissioners certain amendments to Chapters 236 and 270 of the City Code. Whereas, in August 2022, the Board of Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach referred to the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission the task of evaluating and recommending possible amendments to Chapter 236 Subdivision of Land and Site Plan Review of the City Code, including specifically Section 236-30, to provide clarity of intent and efficacy in respect of site plan review. And whereas on February 10, 2023, the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission approved certain proposed amendments upon which the Board of Commissioners took no action. Whereas during the summer of 2023, certain city staff and city consultants undertook a significant review of the site plan review process and recommended extensive amendments to both the city code and processes related to site plan review. And whereas, since February 10, 2023, the Planning Commission has discussed additional changes to both Chapters 236 and 270. And whereas, on September 15, 2023, the Board of Commissioners adopted ordinance numbers 0923-01 and 0923-02, which revised Chapter 236 to create a mechanism for the Planning Commission to approve the consolidation or separation of lots, and which repealed certain provisions of Chapter 270 related to lot consolidation. And whereas the Planning Commission desires to consolidate into a single document its various recommendations that have arisen since August 2022 with regard to Chapters 236 and 270 of the City Code, thereby superseding such prior recommendations and actions by the Planning Commission on this subject since August 2022. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission in session met that the Rehoboth Beach Board of Commissioners consider and adopt the following proposed amendments to the City Code, to wit, Section 1, Chapter 236, Subdivision of Land and Site Plan Review, Section 236-3 of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, as amended, be amended by inserting new defined terms as follows. Increase in intensity of usage. A project in a commercial, which is defined, proposed to be defined as follows. A project in a commercial district that involves a change from a use permitted in a lower tier to a use permitted in a higher tier, regardless of whether it also involves a change in the footprint, gross floor area, height, or lot coverage of the existing development, as those terms are used in Chapter 270 of the City Code. Oceanfront parcel of land. Any parcel of land within the city limits as defined in Section 1-11 of the City Code that abuts the beach or the boardwalk as defined in Section 98-2 of the City Code. Substantial renovation. A project that either A, involves more than a 25% increase in the footprint, gross floor area, height, or lot coverage of an existing building, or B, requires a demolition or reconstruction of more than 25% of the gross floor area of an existing building, as those terms are used in Chapter 270 of the City Code, provided, however, that an interior and or exterior renovation that involves only ordinary and necessary maintenance, repair, and or minor modifications or updating of non-structural elements of an existing building shall not be deemed a substantial renovation. Section 2. Chapter 236, Subdivision of Land and Site Plan Review, Section 236-3 of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001 is amended. Be further amended by striking the defined term site plan review and inserting in lieu thereof new definitions under site plan, making insertions as shown by underlying deletions and as shown by strike-throughs as follows. So the written version obviously will show the red line. I'll try to summarize it here for you. I'll just read the new sub-definitions. Is probably the easiest way to do it here. Site plan, it would be the general definition. Under site plan, there'll be 4 sub-definitions. A would be site plan review generally, which would be defined as follows. The independent review by city staff and the Planning Commission of the specific development plans for a parcel, including all pertinent information required in this chapter, and determination whether the plan complies with all applicable city laws and regulations, including but not limited to Chapter 270 of the City Code, and other applicable federal, state, and county laws and regulations, and whether the plan is consistent with the City of Rehoboth Beach Comprehensive Development Plan. Wherever the term site plan approval is used in this chapter, it shall be understood to mean a requirement that the site plan be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission in accordance with this chapter. B, project concept plan. A concept plan showing existing conditions and natural resources, basic relationships between proposed uses, and proposed infrastructure elements. The concept plan should also illustrate approximate locations of structures, parking areas, site access, and major site features, along with proposed limits of disturbance. The concept plan may be schematic in nature, as it is the first set of plans presented for review and discussion, prepared prior to moving forward with detailed engineering and formal site plans. C, preliminary site plan review. A second set of plans for review that incorporates detailed engineering elements exceeding those found in the concept plan submission and reflecting guidance provided during discussions with the Planning Commission. Preliminary site plans should include enough detail for the Planning Commission to determine whether additional information is needed for consideration or whether the preliminary plan can proceed to the final stage of site plan review. D, final site plan review. The final set of plans presented for review and consideration by the Planning Commission that incorporates all the detailed engineering elements necessary to satisfy all applicable requirements of Chapter 270 and the Comprehensive Development Plan, addresses or clarifies concerns raised by the Planning Commission during the preliminary site plan review phase, and addresses concerns identified by the Planning Commission during the public hearing required by Section 236-34. Section 3. Chapter 236, Subdivision of Land and Site Plan Review, Section 236-7, subsections A and B of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001 as amended, be amended, making insertions as shown by underlining and deletions as shown by strike-throughs as follows. And again, I'll just read 236-7 A and B as proposed. A, the owner, so this would be under the heading Approval Required, Expiration of Approval. The owner of any lands within the city shall apply for and obtain approval of the Planning Commission in accordance with this article before subdividing or re-subdividing any land or consolidating any lots within the city. And similarly under B, the approval for a subdivision, insert, or a consolidation of lots shall expire within 6 months of the date of the decision of approval by the Planning Commission, and so on and so forth, picking up with the former language. Section 4, Chapter 236, Subdivision of Land and Site Plan Review of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, be amended as amended by inserting new Section 236-8.2, Consolidation of Lots, to read as follows. In the interest of time, again, I will represent this as a lift, cut, and place of the former 270-46.1 of the former code, with the exceptions, as I just discussed, that under proposed 236-8.2A, the word parcel would be replaced by the word lot. So A would read, 2 or more lots under common ownership shall be consolidated into a larger single lot for zoning purposes when the multiple lots are utilized as one parcel, so on and so forth. And similarly under C, again, cut and paste from former 270-46.1, but again, in the fourth line to replace the word parcel with the word lot. So we would read an affidavit provided by the city acknowledging the consolidation of the lots into a larger single lot, not parcel, for zoning purposes. Otherwise, the proposed new language for 236-8.2, consolidation of lots, would be verbatim lift in place of the former 270-46.1. Section 5, Chapter 236, Subdivision of Land and Site Plan Review, Section 236-28 of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, as amended, be amended, making insertions as shown by underlying and deletions as shown by strike-throughs as follows. Again, I'm reading it. We're adding, the idea here, by the way, if I just say we talked about before, is to make sure that the public notice requirements for site plan review and subdivisions or consolidations are identical, so that 236-28 and 236-34 would be identical. So 236-28 would be hearing required notice subdivisions and lot consolidations. A, the Planning Commission shall fix a reasonable time for a hearing on subdivision applications and lot consolidation applications, and shall give public notice as required by subsections B and C below. Any member of the public shall have an opportunity to be heard and may appear in person by agent or by an attorney at the hearing. B, at least 15 days notice of the time and place of both the preliminary review of and the public hearing on a subdivision application or a lot consolidation application shall be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the city. Further, at least 15 days notice of the time and place of the preliminary review of the public hearing on a subdivision application or a lot consolidation application shall be sent to all city property owners whose boundaries are within 200 feet of the boundaries of the property, which is the subject of the subdivision application or lot consolidation. Otherwise, that language is the same. Under C, again, new language as follows to align 236-28 with 236-34. The proposed new language for 236-28C would be as follows. Furthermore, the building inspector shall post notice of the public hearing on any subdivision application or lot consolidation application at one or more prominent and easily visible places on the property that is the subject of the subdivision application or lot consolidation application. The notice shall be posted on yellow cardboard, at least 18 inches by 24 inches in size, and set forth the date and time of the public hearing on the subdivision application or lot consolidation application. Then it picks up with the language from the current code. 2 sentences down, some changes. 1, such notice sign shall be posted for each street or boardwalk on which applicant's property fronts. Shall be the responsibility of the applicant to maintain the notice signs in good conditions during the posting period. The notice sign or signs shall be posted at least 15 days before the public hearing and shall remain posted until the date of the public hearing on the subdivision application or lot consolidation application. Otherwise, the current code language will remain the same. 6, Section 6, Chapter 236, Subdivision of Land and Site Plan Review, Section 236-29 of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, as amended, be stricken in its entirety. So the proposal here is to strike as being now irrelevant because of the conflating of the public notice requirements under A, B, and C of 236-28 and 34. There's no need for 236-29 anymore. So Section 6 of this resolution would propose that the current 236-29 of the code be stricken in its entirety as obsolete. Section 7, Chapter 236, Subdivision of Land and Site Plan Review, Section 236-30 of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, as amended, be amended, making insertions as shown by underlying and deletions as shown by strike-through as follows. This is the guts of the proposal, so I will read all of this in its entirety. 236-30, site plan required, purpose considerations. A, no building permit shall be issued for any project that requires site plan review under this chapter until such project has successfully completed the review process for project concept plans and preliminary site plans, has been granted approval of the final site plan by the Planning Commission, has addressed all conditions imposed on the final site plan by the Planning Commission, and has received final site plan signatures from appropriate city officials. Unless the Planning Commission expressly determines by way of a formal action confirmed in writing that a particular project covered by Section 236-30A 1 through 6 below does not require site plan review, site plan review is required for projects that involve 1, 4 or more dwelling units, or a substantial renovation of 4 or more existing dwelling units. 2, 4 or more new hotel or motel rooms, or a substantial renovation of 4 or more existing hotel or motel rooms. 3, the development of the entirety or any portion of a parcel of land in excess of 20,000 square feet, or a substantial renovation of a building thereon. 4, a commercial project, either A, comprising over 15,000 square feet of gross floor area, or B, involving a substantial renovation, or C, involving an increase in intensity of usage, or D, involving the development of the entirety or any portion of an unimproved parcel of land. 5, a new mixed-use project, or a substantial renovation of an existing mixed-use project. Or 6, the development or substantial renovation of a building on an oceanfront parcel of land used for commercial purposes. B, if a proposed use or development requires both site plan approval under this article and subdivision of land approval under Article 2 of this chapter, the application for site plan approval and the application for subdivision of land may be reviewed concurrently by the Planning Commission. If a proposed use or development requires both site plan approval under this article and lot consolidation approval under Article 2 of this chapter, the application for site plan approval and the application for lot consolidation approval may be reviewed concurrently by the Planning Commission. There's no changes to C. D, the only proposed change here is to add a new sub 1, and therefore 1 through 5 become 2 through 6, and there's a new 1. So D would read, the general purposes of site plan review include, there's a new sub 1, guiding the growth and development of the city in accordance with the comprehensive development plan, the city zoning ordinance, chapter 270, and this chapter. Otherwise, D remains the same. E changes, so I'll just read the proposed new language in toto. E, the city manager and building inspector shall determine 1, the content of any applications and associated materials to be submitted with any formal site plan applications and sketch plans. 2, the number of copies to be provided. And 3, other associated details of the administrative site plan review process. The Planning Commission shall independently review a site plan and determine whether the plan complies with applicable city laws and regulations, including but not limited to this chapter, Chapter 270, and other applicable federal, state, and county laws and regulations, and whether the plan is consistent with the City of Rehoboth Beach Comprehensive Development Plan. In conducting its independent review, the Planning Commission shall consider, but is not obligated to concur with, the comments of the building inspector or any other city department or agency provided to the Planning Commission pursuant to Section 236-32A. Then the next paragraph of 236-30E lists a number of factors to be considered in a site plan review. I'm not going to read 1 through 18 because there's no proposed changes there, but there is a proposed change to sub 19 and sub 21, so I'll read those. So the preamble to this list of factors would read as follows. In addition, the Planning Commission shall consider the following factors and may require changes to site plans or attach conditions or restrictions when such changes, conditions, or restrictions are consistent with the general purposes of site plan review described in subsection D of this section. And then again, I'm only going to read 19 and 21. 19 would now read airflow, natural light, the effects of sea level rise, and stormwater management, the use of solar and other renewable energy sources, and other relevant environmental factors. 21 would read comments and recommendations received from the city planner, city engineer, city departments, federal and state agencies, and the public. Section 8 of the resolution is as follows. Chapter 236, subdivision of land and site plan review, Section 23631 of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, as amended, be amended, making insertions as shown by underlining and deletions as shown by strike-throughs as follows. Again, I'll summarize it here. No changes to B. There are changes proposed for 23631A. This is project concept review. 23631A would read as follows. Prospective applicants with projects requiring Planning Commission approval shall, not may, shall request project concept review and discussion by the Planning Commission. The purpose of project concept review and discussion is to provide the Planning Commission with the opportunity at one or more meetings to informally review the applicant's potential development before the applicant commits substantial time and expense preparing a formal site plan and associated application for the proposed development. No formal site plan review application may be accepted for filing prior to project concept review, discussion, and comment by the Planning Commission. B would remain the same. The language for C would be changed as follows. At a public meeting, the Planning Commission and the applicant shall review and discuss any issues or concerns related to the proposed project. The Planning Commission shall also receive and consider written comments submitted by any person at or before that meeting, as well as oral comments made by any person at such meeting. Following the project concept review and discussion, the Planning Commission shall provide non-binding written comments and suggestions, which shall be based on its experience and knowledge, technical assistance, and public comments, and which shall be subject to change during the subsequent site plan review process. The Planning Commission shall take no action to approve or deny the concept or any details of a proposed development in connection with the project concept review and discussion. Section 9 of the resolution is as follows. Chapter 236, subdivision of land and site plan review, Section 23632, subsections A, B, D, and E of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, as amended, be amended, making insertions as shown by underlining and deletions as shown by strike-through as follows. So this would be 23632, procedures for site plans requiring Planning Commission approval, and I'll read A, B, D, and E in its entirety since they've been substantially rewritten as proposed. A, after project concept review and discussion pursuant to Section 23631, the applicant may submit a formal site plan application and all associated materials to the Planning Commission for formal site plan review under this chapter. Such application and materials shall be submitted to the city's Building and Licensing Department, which shall immediately notify the Planning Commission and all relevant city departments and agencies of the submission. Within 60 days after the applicant's submission of such application and materials and payment of any required fees, or at any such additional time as may be necessary because of the complexity of the application and materials and other workload, the Building and Licensing Department and any other relevant city departments and agencies shall provide initial written comments to the Planning Commission regarding such application and materials. And B, neither the Building and Licensing Department nor any other relevant city departments or agencies are prohibited from subsequently offering further comments that may be contrary to or different from their initial written comments, if, in their view, subsequent information or analysis justify further comments. And they shall explain why any of their further comments are contrary to or different from their initial comments or any other prior comments. To assist the Planning Commission in its understanding of any comments from the Building and Licensing Department or any other relevant city departments or agencies, such comments shall be accompanied by all relevant substantive communications between or among the applicant, its representatives, the Building and Licensing Department, and or other city department or agency. The Planning Commission, however, is not required to concur with any initial or further comments in determining whether the proposed site plan should receive final approval. D, the Planning Commission may establish additional requirements to be shown on site plans or in special cases may waive, pending the preliminary review as set forth in subsection E of this section, a particular requirement if, in its opinion, the inclusion of that requirement is not essential for for a proper decision on the project. And E, preliminary review. The Planning Commission shall place the applicant's formal site plan review application on its agenda for preliminary review at a regular meeting, which meeting shall occur no earlier than 30 days after the Planning Commission's receipt of the application and the initial and/or further written comments from relevant city departments and agencies as required pursuant to subsection A above. Section 10, we're almost done, folks. Section 10 of the resolution would read as follows. Chapter 236, subdivision of land and site plan review, Section 23632 of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, as amended, be further amended by inserting in lieu of the current subsection F, which is simply disclosed as reserved, new language to read as follows. And this language is identical to the language that currently exists in the Planning Commission's rules, procedural rules. The Planning Commission shall defer a preliminary review of or public hearing or final action on a site plan for which a variance, rezoning, and/or other authorization under applicable federal, state, county, or city laws and regulations is required until such time as the variance, rezoning, and/or other governmental authorization is obtained, unless the Planning Commission determines that a compelling reason exists not to defer. Factors the Planning Commission may consider in exercising its discretion to overcome such presumptive deferral include, but are not limited to, the amount of time the Planning Commission is expected to expend on a site plan that has not received the requisite authorizations and approvals, the time frame in which the applicant reasonably expects to receive the requisite authorizations and approvals, the number, degree, and/or complexity of the requisite authorizations and approvals, and whether the requisite authorizations and approvals could be made a condition of site plan approval. Section 11 of the resolution is as follows. Chapter 236, subdivision of land and site plan review, Section 23633 of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, as amended, be amended by striking subsection B in its entirety and by redesignating subsection C and subsection B. Section 12 of the resolution states as follows. Chapter 236, subdivision of land and site plan review, Section 23634 of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, as amended, be amended, making insertions as shown by underlining and deletions as shown by strike through as follows. Here again, I'll read A and B in its entirety and summarize C for the sake of alacrity. 236-34 hearing required. So again, this would be analogous to the public notice and hearing requirements for subdivisions would be made identical for site plans. So A of 236-34 now would read for hearings required notice site plans. A, the Planning Commission shall fix a reasonable time for a hearing on all final site plan review applications and give public notice as required by subsections B and C below. The new language for B would be at least 15 days notice of the time and place of both the preliminary review of and the public hearing on a site plan application shall be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the city. Further, at least 15 days notice of the time and place of the preliminary review of and the public hearing on a site plan application shall be sent to all city property owners whose boundaries are within 200 feet of the boundaries of the property, which is the subject of the site plan application. Such notice shall be sent by certified United States mail to the last known address to which the city's tax bills are sent, said mailing to be done by the city. Under C, the first sentence would be changed as follows. Furthermore, the building inspector shall post notice of the public hearing on any final site plan review application at one or more prominent and easily visible places on the property that is the subject of the final site plan review application. Otherwise, the language of 236-34C would remain the same. There's two more sections. Section 13, this is what we just referred to when we're talking about the fees. So Section 13 of the resolution is as follows. Chapter 236, subdivision of land and site plan review, Section 236-36 of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, as amended, be amended, making insertions as shown by underlining and deletions as shown by strike-throughs as follows. So I'll just read the new proposed 23636 fees. A, fees shall be established by the Board of Commissioners, which may include a base fee, professional service fees, and other fees that may be incurred in conjunction with the city's review and processing of submitted site plan applications. B, fees shall be paid by the applicant at the time a site plan review application is submitted to the Building and Licensing Department in the manner prescribed by the city. Finally, Section 14 of the resolution is as follows. This goes to Chapter 270, not Chapter 236. Chapter 270, zoning, Section 284 of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, as amended, be amended by inserting a new subsection D to read as follows. D, within 10 business days of receiving a building permit application for a commercial project involving new construction, remodeling, or in addition to an existing building zoned for commercial or multifamily use, the building inspector shall, 1, cause to be posted on the city's website a copy of such building permit application, and 2, forward such building permit application to the city manager. No building permit shall be issued in connection with any such building permit application prior to 10 business days after such building permit application is posted on the city's website.
Are you finished?
I believe so.
I don't want to tie you
Don't wanna
down
rush
here.
it, right?
No, don't want to rush you. All right. It has been stated publicly as to what the proposed revisions to chapters 236 and 270 are. Is there anyone here from the public that has any comment on these issues? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Richard Perry, resident of Rehoboth Beach.
Is your microphone working, Mr. Perry?
I think it is. Is it? Yeah, I think so.
Is it? That's what I was worried about. Okay, much better.
All right.
You're Rick Perry?
Yes.
All right, sir.
Okay, I have a couple of questions and some comments. I appreciate the opportunity to bring my questions and comments forward. This is a pretty massive undertaking of these regulations, long overdue, I might add, and therefore require careful attention. My biggest problem, let me ask a question first. If you go to section 236.31B, and this is a problem that is pervasive throughout the city code, we seem to be a little fast and loose in using the terms may and shall or must. And you changed in subsection A, the may to shall. I question whether or not they need to make a specific request, because if they submit an application requiring site plan review, they should automatically just be deemed to be asking for a project concept review. That may be a little bit technical, but B says prospective applicants may request project concept review. Why isn't that shall to be consistent?
I thought we had changed it to shall. I thought it, because it's now going to be required, right? It used to be optional and now it's going to be required, correct?
I think Mr. Perry's saying we changed may to shall in A, and he's suggesting we
That's
change
what I'm
may to
saying.
shall in
Yeah.
B as
So
well.
is that correct, though? We should be doing it? Because it was, the intention is that it's going to be.
Sounds right.
Yeah, the intention is that it will be required now.
Okay.
But please forgive us for one oversight in this document.
Well, there may be more. Section 236.34B. 230, 236-34B as in boy.
Okay.
With respect to giving notice to city property owners within 200 feet, I think that the wording should be revised there. But first, I have a question. In determining a property whose boundaries are within 200 feet, is it interpreted to mean all of the boundaries of a property must be within 200 feet? Or only one boundary would make that property owner able to get a notice?
I'd defer that question to Mr. Janis, because I think it's your department that makes that decision, don't you?
And you all do that now.
Correct.
Yeah, what's the process currently?
Could you repeat it, please? Thank you.
Does a property owner, in order to receive notice of a proposed preliminary review, does that property owner's property, all four boundaries of that property has to be within 200 feet, or only one boundary would entitle that property owner to a notice?
It's the entirety of the surrounding of the property, so even across the street would be required to be notified.
I think this needs some clarification.
I helped Ann, when I worked with her with the license and send out notices, and she has a map, and she measures
Correct.
the property and draws the circumference to include every single property that's within 200 feet of.
That's still not what you're asking.
But what you're saying, what Mr. Janis is saying is that you would also include a property that is across the street, as if the street doesn't exist, but the boundary line may actually be 220 feet.
If the property falls within the 200-foot, let's call it the radius of that property, all those properties are notified.
But across the street wouldn't qualify. You wouldn't have 200.
We do it just for clarity to make sure that everything is covered.
Anything that falls within that.
Within 200 feet, a radius of 200 feet from that property, we notify.
So that a property across the street that would be a total of 201 feet would not get a notice.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that. I don't think there's any ambiguity about that. And we want to give more notice as opposed err on the side of more, not less.
And we err on the side of caution in that respect, just because it's city property and then 50 feet, let's just say that the street is 50 feet wide, it still meets the requirements of that property across the street for the 200-foot requirement.
What else, Mr.
Mike,
Perry?
Mike,
Hey, Julie.
And this is just a suggestion, but a number of other zoning codes with which I'm familiar have not just a distance requirement like 200 feet, but they also include a provision that all adjacent and confronting properties will be given notice without regard to whether it's within the 200 feet or whatever the numeric boundary is. I don't know whether that would address your question, Mr. Perry, but it is an option.
Yeah, I think there has to be a definition of what is adjacent and what is adjoining. I think there's, from my own experience serving on the Planning Commission, there has been considerable question as to what those two terms mean and how they are distinguished.
Well, I didn't say adjacent and adjoining. I said adjacent and confronting. That would get you the
I'm not
across
sure
the
what
street property.
confronting means. What does confronting mean?
was your question, to repeat your question, does the whole of a property that falls within this 2 feet radius have 200 feet, have to be within 200 feet? Not just does a one boundary have to trigger it?
Right.
So I don't, and certainly, I mean, I reiterate, I don't think that's confusing.
If you're going to leave it using those terms, then I think it should say something like all the boundaries of which are within 200 feet.
I don't think that's the
That's not it.
policy, what we're not trying to do that.
Boundary.
We're talking about notice.
But that's not what Mr. Janus
Yes, it
said
is.
Yes, it
initially.
is what he said.
He said he said you draw a line around the 200 feet and anything that's in it.
Meaning the property, the subject property. So you draw a radius around the subject. If any other boundary touches it within the 200, then they get notice.
Yeah, right, Matt?
Correct.
I think in answer to your question, we are saying that it is interpreted as meaning if any single boundary is within that 200-foot distance, you fall within the ambit of the regulations, which I think is the point you were seeking clarification on.
Right. Well, I'm glad that's on the record because I don't think it's clear as written. My major concern with this proposal is section 236-30E,
38,
30E
30.
as an Edward.
echo.
The second paragraph of that section really greatly, in my view, expands the scope of the Planning Commission's authority. And I think endangers the Planning Commission for a landslide of litigation that will allege arbitrary and capricious actions, as well as other things. You are now granting the Planning Commission a right of independent review and basically sterilizing the building inspector and his report and recommendation as to whether or not a site plan complies with our code. I can't think of anything worse, with all due respect, to the 9 of you sitting there, like a Supreme Court, all coming up with various and sundry interpretations to be considered of what a code section means. As one example, and it's rather recent, dwelling units and hotels. I never heard a more tortured discussion of an interpretation of a code provision than that whole scenario. Other jurisdictions, other municipalities here, do not interpret their code the same way. And that, I think, in my humble opinion, if it were ever challenged in court, that you would be overturned. The power now given by this provision to the Planning Commission is also inconsistent, as nearly as I can tell, with just about every other municipality. I admit I haven't done an exhaustive search, but I looked at the provisions in at least 5 municipalities here in Delaware. Not a single one grants to the Planning Commission the power to disregard a building inspector's determination as to code compliance and grants that power to the Planning Commission. In most cases, it is either the building inspector or a city planner who makes that determination. Some, fortunately, are very specific in their code provisions that say it shall be the duty of the city planner to interpret the provisions of this ordinance, meaning exactly what Mr. Janus has been doing, and that any appeals from that determination by the city planner, in this case, go directly to the Board of Adjustment. I would ask you to please reconsider the power you are granting yourselves for all the reasons I've stated.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Anyone else? All right. Are we ready to vote on the?
Did we do a motion? I'm not sure we did.
We had the reading of the proposed
resolution.
document, that's right. Yes.
Okay.
Is there a motion to forward, with the exception of the one, I think, Mr. Perry?
The shall,
The
correcting the shall.
from may to shall. With the exception of that, is there a motion to approve the recommendations that the Planning Commission has drafted to the Board of Commissioners at this time?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Thank you, Mr. Perry. I will tell you that every word in here has been carefully considered. All in favor?
Do we need to do, we don't need to do roll call?
No, not
Okay, great.
Resolution recommending language, this is not
Okay.
disputed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We will forward these proposed revisions as a positive recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for their review and action as they deem appropriate. And we do so respectfully. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
Discussion? The next and last matter on the agenda is a preliminary review of site plan review application number 0523-041 Rehoboth Avenue Hotel. Mr. Robertson is here with your group. If I can start the discussion today by asking a question to Nick Walls of Wallace Montgomery, because
Yes, sir.
Mr. Robertson, in some back and forth, some documents provided by your office to the Planning Commission, it appears that a portion of the One Rehoboth Hotel property is subject, or is in the VE zone. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the question then becomes, well, first of all, I also understand from what you have, information you provided, that your group has applied for a LOMAR, letter of map revision.
That's correct.
And has that LOMAR been granted?
No, and if I could ask Greg Rochelle to come up as well. He's an
Okay,
engineer.
I understand that, but
Benoni.
before you do that, please, at this point, it has not been granted. You've not received that.
It has not been granted, but we anticipate that happening very soon. And I would add that it's also on a very small portion of the site.
I understand that, but I just want to make clear that since the last communication you had with the Planning Commission, the LOMAR has not been.
No, that's
granted.
correct. It has not been.
And Mr. Walls?
Yes, sir.
Can you, the proposed project here includes two underground floors of parking, as I understand it.
Yep, correct.
And can you please explain to the commission and the public what impact, if any, having a portion of the One Rehoboth Hotel property currently located in the VE zone means as far as their ability to construct that parking facility underground?
Essentially, if the regulations state that where a property has more than one flood zone designated, the more restrictive shall apply to the entire property. So in this case, we would be looking at applying the VE zone to the entire property of the proposed hotel. And in that, there are significantly greater restrictions on building below base flood elevation that are not in the AO, or X zones, for example.
So you couldn't build an underground parking garage?
Be a lot trickier. You might be able to do it, but there's a lot of requirements that you would need to demonstrate to show that it can be done without causing impacts to adjacent properties.
And would a LOMAR, the applied for LOMAR, would that help relieve those restrictions?
Having not seen all of the details about the LOMAR, but my assumption is that it would probably be revised to an AO designation, and that in that case, the restrictions of building below base flood elevation are lessened. So if I may sum up, building a enclosed garage underground in a VE zone is just not a great idea. If we can identify that it truly is an AO zone, which from my review of the area looks to be supported, it would be much more consistent with the floodplain ordinance.
And another applicant of nearby property had a similar zoning floodplain issue, did they not?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they got a LOMAR.
Correct. And similar in that they went from a VE zone to an AO.
All right.
Yep.
So, Mr. Forstner, I think it's
Mr. Robertson.
Robertson.
She did it again. I thought this year you would get it right.
I might be, I don't want to insult Mr. Forstner.
Oh, thank you.
But I would say that there may be a motion to defer today that may come up. Our rules provide that if this type of third-party approval is needed, that it's time better spent for the Planning Commission to look at a project once that type of approval is obtained, which is exactly what another applicant has done. Do you you perhaps have some folks here that want to speak to that, but can you tell us why it's
So I will. Looking at that other application, that was an entirely different set of circumstances, for one thing. When they came in to the Board of Adjustment initially, they were not aware that they needed a flood map amendment. And that immediately put everything on hold. We knew from day one that we would need an amendment to the map. We applied back a year or more, of March of last year, to get this started. Since that time, and I think the Planning Commission had consideration of that other hotel project perhaps while they were going through their map amendment process, but that map was amended to AO. That occurred. And the one thing I want to back up, and I'm going to ask Greg to come up because I'm an attorney and not somebody that deals with this stuff, but you know, there's a misconception about these flood maps that we're asking for a change to a map. It is a change, but the way the flood maps are created, it's sort of an inference where the line is. It's not based on specific data. It's not based on some environmental scientist or geotechnical person coming out and actually mapping the city of Rehoboth Beach. It's a general inference, basically connecting dots where they think it might be. So any property owner has the ability to come in and actually do that specific site data investigation and evaluation, take that information to FEMA, and then FEMA says, yes, this is where the line actually should be. So it's not that we're asking for a change, we're asking for clarification of where that line should be, specifically based upon the circumstances in the city of Rehoboth Beach. You know, that's sort of the background on it. The second aspect of it is that, now I understand what Wallace Montgomery has said, but you know, this is a minor map amendment, you know, and it's not a standalone map amendment. It's consistent with what FEMA has already done next door. As you can see on the screen, what's in gold was the AO change that the Bellhaven Hotel was able to accomplish. So we have that as well. Greg, if you want to come up here real quick. Greg Rochelle's with Pannoni. He has, or our group has subcontracted with Cummins Cedarburg, which is a national engineering firm out of Florida that deals with FEMA all the time. They have had conversations with FEMA, and we anticipate that their initial letter approving the AO zone is imminent at any time. So, you know, based on that feedback, and Greg, if you want to expand upon that.
Sure. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. And Vince did a great job actually kind of describing how the maps do get put together. You know, there's a bit of an art to them when they're put together because they're looked at on a regional scale, very large scale, and they're based on transects that are cut approximately every 1,000 feet. So that's about a quarter mile. And that's how someone, excuse me, a cartographer will develop the lines based on elevations using topography. What they don't do when they're preparing the maps is use aerial photography underneath of them to determine where building locations are. Because while you're following and kind of tracing a line at a specific elevation, and such in this case we have, you will see, if you kind of look at the map and you're familiar with this area, there's base flood elevation 15 in front of our site, and just to the south in front of the Bellhaven, it jumps down to 12. It's a 3-foot elevation change. So someone has to make kind of an interpolation, sitting at a desk drawing a line, to figure out where that goes. And so that line may not be very highly accurate. And when they're drawing that line, and you can see this, very small scale of the map that, you know, when they're drawing these lines and they're used, that the actual thickness of the line itself could be 20 or 30 feet wide on the map. And so just by the thickness of the pen, there's some inaccuracy right there. What we've done in this particular instance, using Cummins Cedarburg, who's Vincent noted is nationally recognized and experts in this, did a very site-specific study. and cut a transect right through the site and modeled it that way to determine what the flood elevations would be and should be in front of the site. And it's very consistent. It is consistent with exactly what the Bellhaven had done with their application. In 2021, they had a map revision made, which changed that yellow golden area, which was Zone VE previously, to Zone AO. And we have submitted to FEMA in March, and it went through 2 revisions already. A meeting was held with FEMA to discuss final comments this past November, and a last resubmission was made right before the holidays. I think it was just right before Christmas. And the discussions that were had between the consultants and FEMA were basically, this is how it's going to be shown. So FEMA's already is basically, they negotiated as far as like, yeah, exactly, yes, this is how we agree with your calculations. This is where we feel we're comfortable with what you're showing and what you're proposing, and they're just going through their final technical review right now. So we do anticipate that within the next several weeks that we'll at least get some written notification that they've accepted the final plans and revisions, at which point in time they'll issue more of a formal letter and it'll enter into its public review process. So, and again, this, as Vince pointed out, this is a very minute section of the VE zone that's just barely clipping one corner of the site. Albeit it is VE, we recognize that, but it will actually make it consistent with the other map change so that it's all AO zone. And it will be out to the center line of the boardwalk, and at which point in time, the entire site, with the exception of that one corner, is Zone X, which is entirely out of the floodplain, except for that one corner will be rezoned AO, and that would only require flood proofing of the building.
Now, how long does the public review process?
So between the time they issue their letter, and then in that letter, they'll stipulate dates at which time it'll be publicly advertised in a newspaper. They have to do it a minimum of 2 times, so many days apart, and wait for the public review, which is a 90-day comment period. And then there's some buffer time on either side for preparing paperwork and documents and so forth. From the time the letter is issued to the time that the map is actually made effective, meaning that the map actually gets physically changed, is about 5 months. So we would anticipate an effective change where the map on the screen is no longer saying proposed AO, it's showing all AO, probably sometime in June.
Sometime when?
June of this year. That's an effective map change. But we would anticipate having a formal letter from FEMA within the next several weeks, month probably, approximately, guessing here. But based on the conversations that would say this, yes, we agree with this, and we're now advertising for this map change, and barring any major public concern or outcry, it moves forward. And this is a FEMA process that gets done all the time because they recognize that the maps are graphically semi-inaccurate based on best available. And because a study's been done in front of the site using actual topography that we've collected and modeled, that's actually quite accurate now on a site-specific scale versus this large regional scale as the maps are prepared.
Anyone else have any questions?
One thing, too, if I could add to that, there's a couple of other moving parts to this. One is, as you may recall from our concept review, and we certainly made this point to the Board of Adjustment, and we've definitely made this point with the city. This has been a cooperative effort, I would say. Granted, no approvals have been promised. I don't want to suggest that, but a cooperative effort with the city staff, with Davis, Bowen, and Friedel, with the city's Public Works Department, with the city manager, with EDIS or EDIS, who's the project manager for the lifeguard station. We've had multiple meetings with them. Our architect, Wally Funk, who's here today from Chicago, he's had a great deal of exchange of information with them about the coordination to the extent we can of the 2 projects. And it's not, that one of us wants to get out in front of the other. It's more of a practical issue of we want to be able to coordinate construction. We want to be able to coordinate construction mobilization. We want to be able to coordinate utilities, utility installation, utility sizing. everything that needs to happen with those two projects. And that's very important. For one thing, it means we don't have to open up city streets twice. We don't have to inconvenience businesses, residents, visitors, et cetera, less than we would if we had to do it twice. And there's just some cost savings, frankly, to the city if we can size everything the same way and contribute to that and do whatever else on the utilities, for instance. We would like to stay on path with as much as we can. I mean, construction's never predictable. Dave Grayson here, who's our contractor, probably doesn't like me saying that, but stuff comes up all the time. But to the extent we can, we'd like to stay reasonably on track as much as we can with that city project to mitigate any of those adverse impacts. And then finally, I'd like to point out that you all do have the ability to condition the approval on this occurring. Now, we've heard from Greg, who's not me saying it, he's the engineer who's been dealing with Cummings-Cedarburg with FEMA, and we've heard that this is going to happen. What we'd like to do is make our presentation, keep this moving forward. Perhaps that letter comes in while we're moving this forward. Alternatively, you all, if you're inclined to act favorably on this site plan, you all make the decision to act favorably upon it, conditioned on that FEMA approval. And I think that's reasonable because, wearing my other hat, sitting through literally thousands of site plan review and zoning hearings, at the preliminary stage, it's more often than not, it's contingent on getting agency approvals, whether that be county, state, or federal. And it's different with FEMA, I admit that, but a lot of the state agencies, if we had to deal with DelDOT, or if we had to deal, well, we will have to deal with DENREC, oftentimes Sussex Conservation District, they will not review a plan until it gets preliminary site plan approval. They're not going to spend their time and energy reviewing a plan that they don't know will get approved by whatever zoning jurisdiction has authority over the plan. So making this approval, if you're inclined to act favorably upon it, if we don't get the FEMA map, because I expect that we're going to have more than one meeting on this site plan review, maybe anyways, but if we don't get the FEMA by the time that these meetings are done, then it would be contingent on getting that approval. So we're prepared to go forward today. We'd like the opportunity to do that. We've got our team assembled to do that.
Let me ask the gentleman that just spoke a question. What if FEMA sends you a Dear John letter? What if they send you a letter you just don't like? That it doesn't, what happens? What is your recourse?
Well, I think our team's going to get together and we're going to discuss that recourse. And we've all.
Well, what's been your experience?
What's been my experience? Well, we look at the ordinance says now if you're in VE and that you have to abide by the most restrictive regulations. We're looking at either elevating the building or modifying the footprint of the building so that it's no longer in VE.
Let me ask that question another way, though. What's been your experience based on getting this far along in the FEMA process to amend the maps? If based on their indications that they're going to make that.
After being on 2 full reviews and going through an actual face-to-face meeting and discussing how the map's going to be amended directly with the agency responsible for approving that they're if they were to send a Dear John letter now, boy, I'd be really upset with them because they'd be misleading us an awfully long way, taking us down a long path for no good reason at all.
Vince, when you speak, would you step up to the
sure,
mic?
yeah,
Because this is being recorded.
Yeah, understood.
Okay.
I'll re-ask the question just for the record. The question that Mr. Rochelle answered was that in his experience, when we're this far through the FEMA process, and they have given their preliminary indication that they're going to approve the map amendment after those negotiations, in his experience, has there been a situation where they've completely reversed course? And I think his answer was no.
Yeah, that is correct. If they had any major objections to this would have been fleshed out in the first submission that they looked at back in March. And I think we have a precedent set directly across the street, directly adjacent to the property. That's a much larger area that's already been amended.
But that's not
no different, and it just makes the map more consistent because right now it's kind of like awkward-looking puzzle. We're making the puzzle piece a little more contiguous.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of blown away by some of the things I've learned here today, but the main thing is the precedent, the process precedent is not that. When the Bellhaven came before the Planning Commission in 2019, 2019 and 2020, at the June 2020 meeting, it was observed that a threshold issue was whether the Lomar application would be approved by FEMA. It was approved in 21, and granted in 21, and then they came for preliminary site plan review not until 2023. I'm not saying yours would take that long. All I'm saying is the Planning Commission at that time, which was, I wasn't on it at the time, and some of the people here were and some weren't, was identified as a threshold issue. So that's the precedent we're working with.
But I would, now I don't have the minutes, but from my recollection of that, the difference was that they had not even started it at the time that they came. So in other words, we're in the,
I got it.
you know, the bottom of the ninth here. You know what I mean?
Okay, well, that's my second concern, because that's the other thing that I'm frankly blown away by. You've known it all this time, put in an application last March, and didn't bother to tell us until the city's report was issued showing a mistake in the plan,
Ms.
and that's
Gay,
how it came out.
That's incorrect. As I said, we have had multiple meetings with the city.
But we didn't know it. It's not reflected in the application. It's not reflected anywhere in any materials we got until December 14th.
Oh, I beg to differ, because the city, now I can't tell you what the city has included in its report, but we have been very transparent with the city, and they have known since day one that there was going to be a map amendment before we even applied.
We didn't. We only got it on December,
Well,
and the applicant didn't reveal it. I mean, one of the main things it says on submitting a site plan review, which was submitted in May, is to define existing physical features. So if it had been noticed at the time that, hey, this has been applied for, here's the actual physical features, and here's what we're thinking it'll be, 6 months from now, then that's fine. But we didn't know. So here we are at preliminary stage when we didn't know a threshold issue.
I can't respond to that because, as I said, the city has known that from day one. And now without pulling the site plan up, and Wally has it, I know, on a zip drive or flash drive, I mean, we identify those lines. We've been in the process of making that map amendment. Again, we have had meetings with everybody at the city. There seems to be a disconnect that the Planning Commission is not part of the city. We have had multiple meetings with the city, with city staff, all the way up where this has been fully disclosed and fully transparent. There's never been an issue stated that we cannot move forward based upon this minor FEMA map amendment. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it just seems like at this point it's the most efficient use of everybody's time and the city's if we continue to go forward with the application, realizing that it is contingent on that map amendment. Because from everything we've heard today, that's not going to be a showstopper. I mean, there's not any indication that it's not going to be granted. It's such a minor thing that, there's no reason to think it won't be granted. And we understand that if it's not granted, we can't move forward. But there's no reason to think it's not going to get granted based on all of our discussions that we've had with FEMA.
Do you have a problem providing the Planning Commission with whatever ongoing correspondence, traffic, documents back and forth between your group and FEMA?
Absolutely. I don't have any problem disclosing that. I don't have it here today with me to disclose.
No, but what I'm saying is, do you have a problem with providing that to us on an ongoing basis?
Absolutely, yeah. So we can share with you the emails between Cummings Cedarburg and FEMA and all those. Now, I don't know, Greg, if there's meeting minutes from those in-person meetings, and certainly going forward, we can share that with you as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, you understand our concern about reviewing and spending. We have lots of people waiting to have their projects reviewed by this commission. And you understand the concern about reviewing one that's just not ripe, not ready.
Well, I would disagree with that, but that's
No, what I'm saying is on a general principle level, we don't want the next applicant to come in. They need whatever 3 of these Lomars, and they don't tell us, and they expect us, though, to go through the whole process of review, spend all that time with in your argument would be in their case, would be a greater, perhaps, percentage of failure. But we don't want to look at projects that aren't going anywhere. That's all I'm
Well,
saying.
no, and
And
I
I'm not
understand.
saying that about your project per se.
right.
I'm just telling you from a policy standpoint, how this commission needs to operate.
No, and I agree with that. And, you know, if we were the first ones in the door and had not done anything with FEMA, that might be a different situation. We also had a concept review meeting with you all a year ago, and I recall we talked about this, although I can't say that with certainty. Here's the thing, though. I'm a little bit here. Yeah.
So we arranged the agenda according to what we think we can accomplish within any particular meeting time.
Understood.
Okay. Among the commissioners, any thoughts about where we are on this deferral issue?
Well, from my standpoint, I commend you for your presentation, the arguments you made, but I'm really trying to think this through from the standpoint of what makes sense procedurally and what makes sense from the standpoint of good governance. And it seems to me at the end of the day that this issue of the LOMAR is really a seminal issue in terms of whether the project goes forward or not. In fact, I really can't think of any issue that really is more fundamental to this project and probably more of concern to the public, you know, from a safety standpoint and from other perspectives. To me, it really doesn't make a difference whether someone knew in advance that they needed the LOMAR or found out about it later. I guess to me, the issue is one required or not? And I think there's no dispute that it is. And my instincts tell me that taking that into account, we should wait until one is granted. Now, I hear you when you say hopefully it will be a short delay. Quite frankly, I'm hoping it is because personally, I like to see the commission get through issues and to resolve issues and to make progress, and I don't like holding things in abeyance. But it seems to me that, you know, we should wait. If it is a short delay, that's good. If it's a longer delay, we can spend our resources and our energy and time better on other projects. And there's so much uncertainty these days with respect to governmental action. You might laugh and say you're seeing it here, but I'm saying, you know, expecting things on a certain timeline or expecting a particular result is a dangerous bet. And I think we would just all be better off tabling further deliberation until we have this fundamental issue received. I'm sorry I took a long time. I only did that because I do understand your desire to move this project forward. And I can relate to that, and I can relate to your interest to move through these issues as quickly as possible.
Anyone else? Ms. Davis.
This is maybe more of a question than a statement, but if I understood you correctly, one of your concerns about going forward is and it makes sense, your client's desire to coordinate with the city construction of the hotel.
Well, I would say it's both parties. The city wants to coordinate with us, and
I
we do
hadn't
as well.
finished.
Right, okay.
Your client wants to coordinate with the city, and it makes sense for the city to coordinate with you all. As I understand where the city is, and I'm sure you will correct me if I'm wrong, demolition will be starting shortly, and going on through the spring until the summer, when everything will stop as far as the lifeguard station goes. And the construction on the lifeguard station isn't going to then begin at all until September, which is, 8 months from now. So if you're correct that within 5 months, you ought to be able to get this approval tied up and finally approved, then a delay of 5 months as against an 8 months from the standpoint of the city, where no construction is occurring, would suggest that it's not going to be terribly prejudicial if we do wait until you have this LOMAR in hand.
I'm not sure if that's a question or a statement.
It's both.
Yeah, well, I would respond. I hear what you're saying, Ms. Davis. At the same time, if we get that LOMAR in whenever, say it's late spring, early summer, I think it'll hopefully be sooner than that, and we can talk about what it is that you all need for us to go forward too. But recall, the Planning Commission just does site plan review, okay? So that's a zoning review. We have still got to go through Mr. Janus for building plan review. And as efficient as Mr. Janus is on a project like this, for us to get a building permit, even after now we have to wait 10 days once it gets posted on the website, that'll be quite the stretch to get us mobilized and constructing in September. So if we have to wait that long.
Anyone else? Mr. Dewey.
I may be somewhat of an outlier, and I do recognize that, but the pragmatist in me would like to find a way to move forward. There seems to be a lot of communication between the developer and the city. Experts in the field have been engaged, and every indication, although we can't use it necessarily as hard evidence, but every indication is that things are moving forward. And, again, my profession is an educator. Many of you, your professions are attorneys, and it turns on dotting I's and crossing T's. Educators, we're more interested about getting the job done, but making sure it's done within, following rules and regulations. I just think it would serve the better interests of the Planning Commission and the developer if we were able to find a more timely path forward than deferring this pending a full completion of the LOMAR process.
All right. Is there any thought, because we are close to our stop time anyway, so today is pretty well spent. Yeah. Is there any thought perhaps to continuing this to our next monthly meeting, putting it on the agenda as number 1, and in the interim, you come forward with what you have from your experts to demonstrate that this thing is on track and will stay on track? Does that make sense?
That does, and we can certainly commit to that, and we can actually get from our experts, and hopefully maybe we'll have something more from FEMA, but we can get that specific question answered in more detail.
Well, now, I'm maybe out there by myself on
No,
this
I
one, so I have to,
understand,
There's a clarification here, yeah.
I do have a question, and it relates to your comment, John. I am procedurally, what I was advocating is we wait until you have the letter in hand, as opposed to waiting until the entire process, including the map revision, was complete. Now, I don't know if that helps, but to me, I was not necessarily waiting until, the ice had frozen. I was waiting till temperatures dip below 30.
Well, and I would say as a practical matter, since it's 4:12 now, we're not going to get through a public hearing regardless today before 4:30. I will tell you, coming to this meeting, our team had talked about it. As I said, we anticipated that this was going to be more than one meeting anyway, because it's complex. I mean, I'm sure no matter how good a presentation I make and my team makes, you all are going to have questions that you were going to want us to come back with. My thought would be, again, setting aside the time constraints, and we would have gone through that, you all would have had questions. We would have that letter. We would come back in February with that letter and answers to your questions. But it sounds like,
Well, that may be ideal.
Yeah.
yeah, and that may be what we end up doing by default.
Okay, well,
In that we're going to come back in February with that letter, and in the meantime, share all the information and exchange we've had with FEMA.
Okay, so I have a question. Are you saying what happens, you're saying you're referring to that letter meaning the ultimate FEMA decision or the body of information you have about your negotiations so far?
Both.
But if you don't have the letter, are we still coming back, which I would be, presuming we see the documents and it supports your judgment that the decision is in the offing, then I would support moving forward.
Well, I would analogize this to continuing this in the litigation world for a status conference, a February status conference. We come back, you tell us where you are. If you've got the letter, that's fabulous. If you don't, you will have provided evidence to us that we can consider, and we kick through this again.
Okay. Then and I don't have a disagreement with that. Would that mean that, again, thinking attorney-wise, status conference is not the same as a hearing? So
it would be a preliminary, we're not at a final public hearing by any means.
yeah, and so then assuming that we give you, because I've got a team here of engineers and people flying from Chicago and Florida and whatever. So if we come back and you're satisfied with what we have in February, that we'd be hopefully on for March for what we were planning to do today.
We can't commit to that. We can set it for a public hearing when all the questions have been and issues have been investigated. And I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I think you're being a little too aggressive on scheduling.
Okay.
But we would still treat the February meeting as preliminary review?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm confused.
Yeah, I am as well.
Well, I think you've gotten most
So
of
we're
what
going to
you
do a
want.
preliminary review in February, presuming that the document, let's pretend there's no final letter, but presuming the documents support their judgment that it looks like things are going
Be a
ahead.
decision we'd have to make.
So will we only meet in February for the sole purpose of making that decision? Or do we make that decision and move into preliminary review at the same meeting?
I'd like to clarify something. As I understand it, there's a difference between the letter that you all are anticipating getting within a few weeks and the full FEMA map amendment process. The letter that would indicate preliminary approval subject to the public process, you think you will get. And that I assume it's your position that with that letter in hand, most times the public process is nothing more than a confirmation of the original letter. And even though it would be up to 5 months before you got the final map amendment completed. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's actually a question I asked Greg earlier today, was when they grant that letter and they say we've got to send it out for public comment, are you aware of any situation ever where it's been reversed? And his answer to me was no, so the letter's the letter. It's not, then it's just a waiting period.
Well, I would be willing as a compromise to condition it on having the letter in hand.
Okay.
Before we go into
All right, well,
preliminary.
that's clear then.
Not
I was
delay
trying to
this
find
until
you a little
the map amendment is complete.
better spot, but you didn't like that. So I think we're back.
I'm not sure what spot we're in.
Well, where we are, I think, is it would be continued until February. And if you have the FEMA letter, then we can move forward with a preliminary site plan review.
Okay. Okay.
And I think having all the background documentation would
Yes.
would help too, just as an education.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll show that. Because, I mean, it's kind of an interesting back and forth how
Yeah,
they got
I would think so.
to this
I would
point,
think it would be educational.
And I just want to reiterate, this was not us holding back information. I don't want.
We understand.
Yeah.
We understand.
I mean, again, I've talked about this a little bit before, but our interface with the city and the planning commission, until we get to the planning commission, is through city staff. I mean, that's what we have to rely on. I'm not coming to Mr. Bryan's doorstep with all the information, or really even Luke. I mean, I know Mr. Mehta, he sits with you all. I mean, we have been very transparent. The city signed off on it. Everybody's known about that. I don't want you all leaving here today thinking that, you know, we thought we'd get it, you know, whatever, that we were not going to make an issue. We've known have known it's an issue the whole time, you know, and been marching forward to get it done. And every indication was that, well, frankly, we applied for this site plan review back in May, you know, and as it got to be November, December, you know, we thought everything would line up, but it's always been disclosed to these folks.
We understand that.
You know, that's been the case.
We think Mr. Janis is a good guy. So thank you very much.
Nobody didn't say that about me.
Mr. Forston, I think you're wonderful.
Now, are we all going to the summer house? Apparently, that's where everybody goes after.
Anyone else? Dr. Trejos, I know you had a question about some documents that you had dropped off at the last meeting. Those will be uploaded to the agenda, and particularly since we're now moving this matter to the February meeting. Is there anything else before?
Do we have any, I want to see if there's any public comment?
Yeah, any public comment to anything else here today that came before us, or that came before us? Yes, anything else? Thank everyone. Take care.
So
We're adjourned.
Still recording.